Hello and welcome to another edition of the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. We are continuing our position preview series here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. We've done the quarterback, running back, and receiver position, and we are up to the tight end spot now, the always exciting tight end position. And also, it's very exciting here at RealTime Fantasy Sports right now because we have drafts going off around the clock. You name it, you can get in a draft here at Real-Time Fantasy Sports. You can get our Fantasy Life Championship for a chance to win $500,000, our Best Ball Championships, our Real-Time Fantasy Football Championship. We have all sorts of great contests. Also, don't forget about our Commissioner product, which is the best in the business, in my opinion. So if you want to run a league, run it on our site. Go to rtsports.com. All right, let's hit this position preview now. And I'm going to bring up my son, Henry Paur, as always. Henry, we're doing tight ends today. You excited about that?
I'm excited.
Should be good. A lot of different questions to get to in this preview. We've kind of done similar themes throughout if you watched our other position previews, and we're going to kind of hit on some of the similar topics as well. And the first one, we did this for every position, and it's the biggest storyline heading into drafts for that tight end position. What do you think it is?
So I have the Trey McBride versus Brock Bowers debate. I feel like as of recently, it seems like Brock Bowers has taken the lead in this one. It started kind of as McBride was ranked higher. Now it's kind of McBride's going ahead of him, but I think they're both going to be very similar players. I think I may lean Brock Bowers, but I think this is a really good debate of like who we think tight end one is. And we got two guys going towards the top. And I don't think you can go wrong with either of them, though, really.
Yeah, I think it's a close call. You see it in drafts. We watched a lot of them, and sometimes it's Bowers, sometimes it's McBride. You can make a case for either one for sure, and I think that is a big storyline for sure. Mine is kind of along those same lines, and it's just the strategy of the tight end position. I feel like this year more than ever, because past years it's been maybe just one or two tight ends that really stand out above the rest. But I think we have like five or six now that are pretty good. So do you want to go early and get one of those five or six tight ends, or do you want to wait and try to get a couple in that 9, 10, 11 round range and then platoon them? What's your strategy in drafting a tight end? I think that's a huge storyline, and it definitely impacts the way you draft. I've done a lot of drafts already this year, and I've tested going McBride or Bowers early and then also waiting on a tight end. And I've had mixed results. Sometimes one of my drafts I really liked when I took Trey McBride early in the draft. I thought my team still turned out well, but other ones where I've done that, they haven't turned out as well as I like. So I think that's a huge debate, and it definitely is something you should play around with and hit those drafts and figure out what strategy works best for you. All right, Henry, next category, safest pick. This one for me, I don't know about you, like I didn't think there was a ton that fit this category because tight end's always kind of scary from year to year, but who's your safest pick?
I'm going a little boring option here. I just said Brock Bowers. I mean, he's going to be in and out, probably a top 3 finish almost every week. I feel like the new offense and the Clint Kubiak, I feel like he's going to go to him a lot. We saw what he did in Seattle. His whole offense revolved around that number one pass catcher in JSN. And I think, again, that's what's going to happen here in Vegas. It's going to be the Brock Bowers show in the passing game. And I assume he's going to get targeted a lot. We know Cousins loves a tight end. He went to him a lot last year, and Kyle Pitts. So I'm just going to assume that the safest pick is probably Brock Bowers. I know it's a little boring, but there's not a lot of safe options, it feels like.
I agree. And I'm going to go a little later than that. And I'm going to say Tyler Warren of the Colts. Colts, yeah, first of all, Warren's kind of really grown on me, especially recently. And it's because the Colts are already banged up at receiver, already having issues with injuries there. Alec Pierce, Josh Downs. Warren's ADP is 58, so you have to go pretty high on him. But he was fifth overall in tight end scoring as a rookie, and Michael Pittman's gone. I think that's a guy that could end up giving Warren a lot of targets because Pittman was peppered early and often in this offense, and I think Warren's going to play a similar role underneath. And I think he's going to have a huge season, Warren, in year 2. I love his floor in this offense, so that's why I think he's the safest pick at tight end. All right, biggest bust. So the opposite end of things. Who do you think is going to bust out this year?
I have Dallas Goedert, and it's because they added to that tight end room. They added Eli Stowers to that room, and I just worry that he's going to lose a little bit of playing time. Maybe not a ton. I know he signed a 1-year extension, but a lot of his production last year came from these like 1 to 2 yard touchdowns. That felt like, it felt like he gets some shovel passes or something along the goal line, and that's how his fantasy points produced. He wasn't catching a ton of passes or getting a ton of yards on a weekly basis. It was mostly based on, did he catch one of those shovel pass touchdowns or a little fade on the goal line? And I just see like that seems like it may regress this year. I just a new offensive coordinator. I just think that it's a little risky going Dallas Goedert here with how high his touchdown production was last year.
My biggest bust, I'm going to say Sam Laporta. He had injury issues last year, played just 9 games. That led to his down year. But even before that, I was a little worried because of a regression in targets. He had 120 targets as a rookie compared to 83 the following season. These are both years he played a full year. And also the Lions, they ran the 4th fewest routes at tight end last year. So I just don't know if he's worth the price tag. You got to pay a pretty hefty price to get Sam Laporta. And I have a feeling he's going to be up and down from week to week. And so I think he's a risky pick for this coming year. And I'm not sure he's going to live up to that ADP that he has right now. All right, player, you're higher on than the consensus. So somebody you might be going a little earlier for than the ADP says, Henry.
I have Dalton Kincaid. I think people may realize that he was injured a lot last year, but if he never got injured, he was on pace for around 850 yards and 6 touchdowns, which that would have been a great draft pick for where you're drafting him with his ADP. I think it's the same thing this year. I think, if anything, with DJ Moore coming in this offense, that's going to open up more for him down the middle on seams and drags and all this. I just think Moore's going to open up for him. And if he's fully healthy, I mean, he can have a big year. I mean, I just feel like this offense is going to be a lot more high scoring with Moore there. I just think the passing game is going to be 10 times better. And it just opens up a lot more for Dalton Kincaid this year.
I really like Harold Fannin this year. He's one of my go-to targets. I have him owned in a ton of leagues already. He was the 6th rated fantasy tight end as a rookie, and he pretty much split the work with David Njoku, and the quarterback play was absolutely horrific most of the time. It's got to be better this year, in my opinion. Even if it's just a little better, I think that's a positive for Fannin. And then the Njoku's gone, and that's nearly 280 vacated routes that Njoku ran last year at tight end. So that means Fannin's going to be out there running more routes. It's a new offense, I know, but Todd Monken has a history of using the tight end like he did in Baltimore with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. So I think Fannin's going to be a really good player once again. I'm not worried about that quarterback situation or the offense not being very good. I still think Fannin gets a ton of weekly work, and I think he's capable of being a top 3 fantasy tight end when the season is over. All right, player you're lower on than the consensus. So maybe not quite a bust, but a player you think is maybe going too high in drafts right now.
I have Jake Ferguson. I think a lot of his production last year came from the weeks where CeeDee Lamb was not playing. He would get these like 8 catches for 88 yards or something. He had a lot of these dump off passes underneath, which Lamb would usually kind of get those underneath ones when he played the slot. So he vacated that role with all those targets with Jake Ferguson. Then we saw when Lamb came back, Ferguson kind of went down the drain a little bit with production. And I just see these receivers probably be fully healthy this year, Lamb and Pickens, that I think it's really gonna. I would stray away from Jake Ferguson in that Cowboys offense.
So the player I'm lower on than the consensus is Oronde Gadsden. He surprised many as a rookie, kind of came out of nowhere, finished 15th overall in tight end scoring. Everybody was really high on him coming into the offseason, but guess what? Chargers signed David Njoku late in the game, and they also brought in Charlie Kolar, which is something you shouldn't overlook as well. I know he's not a great receiving tight end, but he's a great blocking tight end. So that means he's going to be on the field, maybe taking some snaps away from Gadsden as well. I like Gadsden. I think he's going to have some big games, but I just think there's too much going against him for me to take him come draft day. I think he's going to be very erratic for fantasy teams. Maybe I look at him in a best ball league, but in your standard weekly start league, I'm just shying away from Gadsden. I don't think he's worth the risk, so I'm lower on him than most. All right, Henry, best tight end outside the top tier. So we mentioned there's like 5, 6 tight ends. I think when you look at it, I would say it's like, let's look here. Let me look it up for you. So you got Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, and then Harold Fannin. I think that's the clear, like, elite category of tight ends, top 5. But after that, who do you like the best outside that top tier?
So I'm going to bring up a new name we haven't talked about yet, and that's Mark Andrews. I know people are probably sour on him. He had a really bad year last year, but I think things are going to be a lot different this year. New OC, and now you have no Isaiah Likely, which that's a lot of vacated targets from that tight end slot. And I don't even know who the backup is right now for Baltimore. We know how much they love Mark Andrews. They signed him to an extension. They like him. I just think he's going to be a lot better this year. He's going to get some more targets. The only other receiver they really added was Jacoby Lane. I mean, I just feel like there's not much to compete with in that receiver room. You have two rookies, Bateman and Zay Flowers. That's not a ton to compete with for targets. I just think he could be a lot better this year. Lamar's fully healthy. Hopefully, he gets a full season in there. We know he likes to target him in the red zone. So I think Mark Andrews great value where you can get him right now.
I'm going to say his teammate from last year, best tight end outside the top tier, and that's Isaiah Likely. I think he's a really intriguing breakout candidate. Finally gets to be that go-to guy at the tight end position, signing that big deal with the Giants, follows his old coach Harbaugh to New York as well. Giants also, Malik Neighbors, he seems like he's probably going to be ready for week 1, but who knows? And outside of him, the rest of the receiving core is not very good. I think Likely has a chance to really rack up the targets on a weekly basis in this offense. I think he's going to be a legit tight end number 1 for fantasy teams. And I think if you want to wait, maybe not get one of those elite guys that we talked about, I think Likely is a good guy to grab right outside that tier of those elite tight ends. All right, Henry, last category for this tight end position when we're talking about specific players, and it's tight end you should wait for. So maybe somebody you can get later in drafts if you don't want to target the tight end position earlier, if you want to get a top backup, a tight end number 2, because maybe your tight end number 1 has injury issues or whatever. Who do you got for this category?
So I'm going to bring up two guys here. Remember the two guys I already talked about, how much I like them, Kincaid and Mark Andrews. I just think they're both good value where you can get them right now. They're both going to be in very high-scoring offenses. They don't have a ton to compete with their own position. I just think where you're going to get them in drafts, you can get very good value. Even if they're just grabbing them as a backup that's a filler, they could have some big weeks of good matchups. We know Kincaid's going to play the Jets twice a year and the Dolphins twice a year, two teams that are horrible against a tight end. I just think they're going to have good matchups you can platoon them with, and I just think every once in a while you can have them as a good backup even, but I like waiting for them in drafts.
So the tight end I think you should wait for is Hunter Henry. I feel like he's completely forgotten about. He was a top 10 fantasy tight end last year. He finished 9th overall in fantasy tight end scoring. He had 60 catches for 768 yards and 7 touchdowns. He was a favorite red zone target of Drake May. He has 60-plus catches each of the last 2 seasons. I think he's very safe at the position. A.J. Brown's there. I think that's the big red flag everybody's kind of worried about. But I still think Henry's going to get his work. Josh McDaniels has a history of utilizing the tight end, and I don't think that's going to be going away this year as well. I think Hunter Henry's still going to get a lot of work in this offense, get him for next to nothing. And like those players you mentioned too, I think he's going to be worth some spot starts for sure. So I think Hunter Henry's just great value later on in drafts. All right, let's do a debate, a couple rapid fire ones, Henry, where I'll give you 2 options who have very similar ADP, and you tell me who you're going to pick out of those 2. And the first one, we mentioned it already, and I think I know what you're going to say. But these are the top 2 guys, and I think that's one of the huge debates: Trey McBride or Brock Bowers. Who are you going with if you want to take the first tight end?
I'm going Brock Bowers. I've drafted him actually a lot this year. When I get one of those top 3, top 4 picks, I love drafting him on the way back. But I just think he's good. He's going to be so good with Clint Kubiak's offense. We saw Kubiak can do calm plays. We think it's going to be really good in that offense. Cousins loves to target that number 1 guy. It seems to do that everywhere he goes. It was Jefferson in Minnesota. Then it was Kyle Pitts in Atlanta. And now it's most likely going to be Brock Bowers in Vegas. They're going to have a good run game. They'll probably open up things in the passing lanes. We see that people are saying Bowers looks even better than he did his rookie year. So I just think that Bowers is just far and away my number 1 tight end this year.
I agree with you. I think I'm going to go Bowers as well. McBride has more to compete with. He has 2 pretty good receivers in Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison. Who's Brock Bowers has to compete with? That receiver position is brutal in Las Vegas. I think Bowers is just going to be a target monster in that offense. So I'm going him as well. McBride's going to be just fine. He's going to have a good season as well. But I just think Bowers has a slightly higher ceiling at this point. All right, Henry, next one. Kyle Pitts or Isaiah Likely?
I'm going to go Kyle Pitts. I know you love Isaiah Likely, but Kyle Pitts is going to a very now interesting situation here. I know I don't love the QB situation, but Tua, we know, loves the tight end in the red zone, and we know Penix had a decent rapport with him. And I have Kevin Stefanski calling plays, which we saw what that was in Cleveland. He loves the tight end. That was his like number one thing. He loved using David Njoku all over the place. He used Harold Fannin all over the place last year. I just think Kyle Pitts is going to be a staple in this offense. They signed him to a big money extension. He had maybe the best year of his career last year. I just think all the signs are pointing to Kyle Pitts having a good year this year.
I do like Pitts this year. I think he's going to have another fine season, but I'm going likely. I mentioned it earlier. I really like him this coming year after those elite guys are gone. I just think he has a chance to have a really a breakout season in this Giants offense. Again, Malik Neighbors returning from a major injury, not much outside of him at that receiver spot. I think likely he's going to get a lot of work this year. So I'm going with him over Pitts. All right, Henry, I'm going to go two veterans here. Two guys probably on the tail end of their careers. I think they might be the same age, too. Oh, no, actually, Kelsey's older.
Mm-hmm.
But Travis Kelce or George Kittle, who are you going with here out of these two veterans?
I'm going to go George Kittle here. I know I'm mostly going because I feel like Kelce has started to slip a little bit. Kittle, I know, has had some injury issues, but when he's been healthy, he's been relatively very good on that team. I know they added Mike Evans, but everyone else is hurt already. The whole 49ers roster is hurt already. Stripling's had some hamstring issues. Pearsall's already out for the season. He's competing for targets with 34-year-old Mike Evans and 32-year-old Deebo Samuel. And you're competing with some older veterans for targets. Brock Purdy already has a great rapport with him. I think I just trust him more. And the reports are saying that it sounds like he's going to play week one. I know that's mainly the issue, is we thought he may not be healthy with the Achilles tear right away, but sounds like he's going to be good to go week one in that Australia matchup against the Rams.
Yeah, I think if we knew his health for sure and we knew that he was in great shape, that this wouldn't be much of a debate between these two. I'm actually going to go with Kelce, though. I just trust him more. You already mentioned it. Everybody's hurt in San Francisco, and Kittle's hurt all the time. And Kelsey's very durable, even at his age. So I'm going to go with the steady veteran. I'm not going to take any chances if I have to take one of these guys as my tight end one. I'm just going to go with Kelce. I think his floor is really good. Great rapport with Patrick Mahomes. I'm just going to slightly favor him over Kittle in this one. All right, last one, Henry. And these are two guys that are on teams that maybe not have the most high-powered offense, but I think both of them have some potential this year, and they go right next to each other. Greg Dulcich or Pat Freiermuth?
I mean, honest, I'm not the biggest fan of either of these guys, but I'll go to a guy who doesn't really seem like to have much to compete with, and that's Greg Dulcich. That Miami receiver core is just it's probably the worst in football. You got Malik Washington, Tutu Atwell, Kevin Coleman, Caleb Douglas. It's very bad over there. I'm just gonna say Dulcich. I think he could have a decent role in this offense. Malik Willis has to throw the ball to somebody, and I'm gonna say that's probably Greg Dulcich. Freiermuth, I feel like it's kind of started to slip the last couple of years in that Steelers offense slowly. We saw him fall down a little bit last year with the addition of DK and the addition of Darnell Washington having a bigger role. And now they added Michael Pittman to take a lot of the slot snaps. So I just think that Fryer was probably going down a little bit, and Dulcich has not much to compete with at all.
I'm going to go against you and say Pat Freiermuth. I think it's a close call, though. And the reason I say it is Pat Freiermuth's actually done something in the past and produced at a high level, and Dulcich never has. And he's in a worse offense. And we've already heard reports that Mike McCarthy has featured Freiermuth a little more this year. And I think he has less to compete with in the passing game. They've made some moves in the offseason. So I think Freiermuth has a chance to get more targets. I know Darnell Washington's there, but I don't really trust him to be much of a pass catcher. He's more of that blocking tight end for them. So I think Freiermuth ends up having a pretty solid season, kind of flying under the radar right now. Mike McCarthy, I think, is a positive for him in this offense. All right, Henry, bold prediction. Last thing we're going to talk about before we get out of here at the tight end preview video. But what's your bold prediction for the tight end spot this year in fantasy?
I'm going to say Dalton Kincaid finishes top 10 in tight end scoring. I just think it's going to be another good year for him. We saw how much Joe Brady liked using him last year. And now, like I mentioned earlier, I think DJ Moore going to this offense is going to open more up for him because he was probably the best receiver on that team last year. And now DJ Moore is going to draw the double teams and whatever. So I think this is going to open up even more for Kincaid. I just think he's primed for a good year this year.
If you haven't figured it out, Henry likes Dalton Kincaid this year. If you're in drafts with Henry, there's a good chance he's going to take Dalton Kincaid. My bold prediction is Jawan Johnson is a top 10 fantasy tight end this year. Once again, I think people totally forget it. He had a really good year last year. He was a top 10 fantasy tight end last year, and he had just 3 touchdowns. So that really hurt his fantasy numbers. He could have been top 5 if he gets 5 or 6 touchdowns instead of just 3. So while I do think his reception and yardage numbers could go down this year, he had 77 catches for 889 yards. That's really good. Jordan Tyson's there this year, and I think that could take away some of those targets. But still, if he just improves his touchdown totals a little, he'll at least match his fantasy production from last year. So I think he's going to be a top 10 fantasy tight end again this year. People really are not drafting him at all. They don't have much faith in him, but I like this Saints offense. I know you do as well, Henry. I think Tyler Shuck's the real deal, and I'm in on Jawan Johnson as well. All right, Henry, that's our fantasy tight end preview for the coming season. As always, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about the tight end position with me. And I also appreciate you coming on and helping me with all these videos.
Yeah, no problem. It's been fun.
Thanks everyone out there for watching as well. Get in the league at RealTime Fantasy Sports. Go to RTSports.com. All sorts of options to sign up for at this point. It's draft season, and there are drafts going off around the clock at this point. So if you want to draft, go to RTSports.com. This has been Jeff Paur for RealTime Fantasy Sports.